Good morning, gearheads. Welcome to Speed City's coverage of the 2022 Austrian Grand Prix. This is John Massengale sitting in the studio in Austin, Texas, and I'm joined by Jonathan Green and Les Kaiser in the studio. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
And we have Mr. Bob Varsha via Zoom. Good morning, Bob. How are you, and where are you?
Good morning, guys. I'm sorry, I should have worn a darker shirt. I'm kind of fading into the background. I'm in an office at the Fox Studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'm working on the Extreme E weekend. But my boss here at Fox said, no, make sure you're on the air on that radio show for Formula One. And so here we are.
All right.
Hey, good man, Frank.
Thanks, boss.
Well, we are excited. We've got the Austrian Grand Prix, and we had this sprint race yesterday, qualifying on Friday. So I love those weekends. What do you boys think about that?
Yeah, I was dubious at first. I didn't like the idea of gimmickry and silly races and half points. But
It's working out, isn't it?
It is working out. And actually, I remember we talked about this at the end of last season. Verstappen got so many of his points last year through sprint racing because you get down to the top 8 and there's big points. So, yeah, no, I'm in for it now because I also see the value of how many more interviews and, TV stuff comes out of it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to learn of a weekend.
Yeah, for the spectators, it's a total win.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about
Well,
it.
yeah.
I mean, that's who we're doing it for, quite honestly.
Well, and put me in that box because it works for me too. What about you, Bob?
Oh, all the same. And it works for the promoters as well. You'll recall last year after they did 3 sort of experimental shots at it, half the promoters in the series wanted to have a sprint race, and they talked about having 6 this year as a result. The team said, well, with the spending cap and everything, that's going to be tough. So unless you want to throw a whole lot more money at us, we'll stick with 3 for now. So we have 3, 2 already this year, both of them dominated by Max Verstappen. And to Jonathan's point, he's picked up 16 points for 2 first-place finishes. Meanwhile, his nearest rival in the championship, Charles Leclerc, despite all of his pole positions for which there are no championship points, he's on the back foot because his rival is picking up all these bonuses with 1 more to come later this year.
Yeah, and it was plenty to talk about and to enjoy about the sprint race too. But hey, before we go to that, I just want to let everybody know that Chris Medland is going to be joining us from Austria on the grid and in the pit lane and getting us interviews. So we're going to have Chris here in just a few minutes. And we also caught up with the Americans. Chris got some interviews with the American drivers. Jonathan, are you excited about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're killing it. I mean, they really are killing it. We had Logan Sargeant last week, and I won't even ruin Chris's thunder here. We have another winner.
Yeah, we got another American winner.
I mean.
So yeah, we'll have those interviews here this morning as well. But let's talk about the sprint race. Bob, you talked about it in our production call yesterday. It's kind of like we got Max Verstappen on the pole today, but because he won the sprint race yesterday, but the Ferraris kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit, didn't they?
Well, yeah, they did. They got into a scrap. So Carlos Sainz, diving in on Charles Leclerc coming and taking the position back. Meanwhile, Verstappen disappears over the horizon. It was a strange race in a lot of ways, and I've got to wonder whether it was because of the lack of preparation, because they race on Saturday, they qualify on Friday afternoon, they get 1 60-minute practice Friday morning. We had Fernando Alonso, whose car would not start on the grid for the formation lap for the sprint race, so he was out. And then Zhou Guanyu for Alfa Romeo came around, lost power. They had to throw a yellow flag, do an extra formation lap, take 1 lap off the extended length of the race. And so, it got off with that odd feeling. And then away we went. 2 interesting intra-team battles, not just Ferrari, but the Haas boys, Mick Schumacher and K-Mag, Kevin Magnussen, spent some time on one another's gearboxes for a while before Mick got into a wonderful dice with Lewis Hamilton and kept the 7-time world champion behind him. So you're right. There was that. There was other passing going on. It was a really interesting race.
Yeah, Jonathan, what about your impressions of the sprint race
I was
yesterday?
particularly interested to see some real fight from Haas, some real competition from Haas, both within the team and generally speaking. But the fact is, they held off the almighty seven-time world champion, Lewis Hamilton, and Schumacher was pissed off, excuse my French, afterwards because he felt that he got let down because he should have gone in front of Magnussen once he'd lost the DRS, because he was using the DRS to stay ahead of Hamilton and therefore using Magnussen, but he was faster than Magnussen and he kept being effectively denied. He wanted to go past, and he's been quite noisy in the press about it afterwards, and we're starting to see a little touch of the Michaels coming out. And I think anybody who's followed Formula One will know what I mean by that. Michael was a lovely man, but if you hell have no fury like a Schumacher scorned, he was pretty straightforward when it came to how he felt he'd been wronged, even if he sometimes did some of the wronging. But Mick definitely spoke up and said that he felt he was let down by the team, and he was quicker than Magnussen yesterday, and he could have taken the fight and got points, and he missed out because of it.
That's an interesting phenomenon, I think. A driver suddenly having this change in his character. Suddenly, Mick Schumacher is voicing his opinion. You know, asking for attention, asking for the team to address his concerns. Where have we seen that most recently? How about Carlos Sainz at Silverstone?
Well, yeah,
when they wanted him to hold back the field and let Charles Leclerc get away, and he said, "No, let's cut this out, guys. Let us race. You know, let me take my shot." And of course, he did that. He won. So that was a big step up, I think, for Carlos Sainz psychologically, and I think it's a big step up for Mick in this circumstance with Haas. I'll also say, we heard K-Mag in the press saying that he is surprised and comforted, which I thought was an interesting word, that the Haas remain so competitive. They have not put any kind of update package on that car. They won't until the mid-season break. And yet here they are looking, really competitive, qualifying in the top 10 with both cars and really looking strong.
Can you put your finger on that? Because I can't. It doesn't seem to make sense. Alpine are reinventing the wheel, so to speak, in terms of their car. So are Williams, Ferrari and Red Bull, all busy. Mercedes now competitive. And then Haas, in the middle of all of this, is competitive, is going forward, and hasn't touched the car.
Maybe that's the secret.
McLaren and Aston Martin are going backwards.
Yeah.
Well, I hear in the background either there's a hive of bees over where Bob is, or we have Chris Medland from Austria. Hey, Chris, how's it going, buddy?
It's good. I'm just ducking out the way of a stunt plane. Don't mind me. It's
Cruz is back again, is he?
Walker?
Yeah, I am. They're still going with. Someone just told me what the plane was, and I've already forgotten. But yeah, they're doing like an air demo over the track with 50 minutes till lights out. So that is the hum that everyone can hear. They always put on a big show here. They love to do their stunts. We've had Legends cars running earlier today with a load of old F1 cars that were making some beautiful noises. And soon it'll be the sound of the current ones to head out the pit lane.
Good. Weather. Chris.
There is some. Yeah.
Tell me.
Weather. It's actually clouded over a little bit and looking a bit grey right now, but it's quite deceptive here because if you're in the pit lane essentially and you're looking up towards turn 3, so up the hill, you normally get a fair few clouds gathering up there over the hills, but they're not necessarily raining on top of you. But that cloud does seem to have kind of drifted over above us, so it has gone pretty overcast. It's still kind of broken cloud, so there's areas where there's still some blue sky, but there is a risk of rain about now. Sort of 40% chance of rain. So, it could sprinkle. I'd rather it waited a little bit longer and it affected the race. But there's always a chance around here. But if I had to put money on it, I think dry. But it's not certainly at this point.
Well, I understand that the rain was, the best possibility was going to be right at 4 o'clock, so it's not too far away for you.
There you go. That would be perfect, wouldn't it? An hour into the race.
Yeah.
Which would be great timing, because then, really put a spanner in the works. Weirdly, the amount of times it races and it rains just before or just after, and never when we need it to, so to speak. So, hopefully today is a bit different if that's going to happen.
Yeah, was that you, the producer, hitting the spanner clip right as Chris said spanner? That was good, Chris. Nice timing. Hey, Chris, I know you caught up with our American drivers. Man, tell us about that. That's awesome, and let's hear one of those.
Yeah, I did. So let's start with yesterday. And yesterday was a very good day for Jak Crawford in Formula 3. I've just walked past Red Bull's garage, and he's a Red Bull young driver. And he got his first win in Formula 3 yesterday. He just had a great job in the sprint race. He started near the front because it's a reverse grid for qualifying. And he pulled a beautiful move on Carl Collette, who's an Alpine young driver, ran the outside of turn 7 and got his first win. Today didn't go quite so well for him. He was running well, and he got taken out on a late safety car restart in the wet with just 3 laps to go. So he would have scored points and sadly ended up 22nd, I think, classified. But yeah, that's the way it sometimes goes. So, I caught up with him after that race. And to be fair to him, he was pretty philosophical and still pretty positive over the way the weekend had gone. Jak, thanks so much for joining us here before the Austrian Grand Prix. I know you're wanting to dash off fairly soon. We're in the support paddock where cars are coming back from the F2 race. Team's trying to pack up. You're ready to head home. But firstly, we'll start with, sadly, a negative with the way today went. You were having a great race in the wet. And then 3 laps from the end, the safety car restart, it all went wrong. What happened?
Yeah, I had a really good race going. I was I made up 2 positions on the initial start of the race, and after that it was hard to pass, but the pace was good. And then on the restart, I had done a good restart. I basically gone up in the 7th already and was going around the outside of turn 1, try to get in the 6th, and I think the guy in the 9th just came and he took out a guy on the inside, which then wiped me out. So that was a shame because the pace was looking good and I had done a good restart. So.
Yeah, I was watching it and it was all looking so good. You've driven really, really well in tricky conditions as well. It was a lot of rain earlier, but it brings to an end what had been a great run of consistency. And I guess you can still take heart from the performance, but you'd had 8 straight point-scoring finishes up to then. So how pleased have you been with the way you've been driving?
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty pleased with how I've been driving. I think, qualifying performance hasn't been great. I think it's more luck-based than anything. Like on qualifying this weekend, we just got caught out by the red flag. Wasn't able to set a competitive lap time on the second run. So I think I'm pretty happy with my performance, and I'm happy with the car as well. I mean, we were quite quick yesterday in the sprint race, and then obviously quite quick in the wet as well. So I'm pretty happy with everything, and I think it gives me a lot of confidence for the second half of the season.
Yeah, nice, Chris. We've got a bit more of that interview too that we're going to be able to put out later, either on social or maybe later in the show if we get the time. But yeah, Chris, he sounded like, even though, like you were saying, he sounded still upbeat, and he should be.
And yeah, and I've said this right from the get-go. He's the real deal. I mean, I know we said that about Sargeant, and he is absolutely so. But this kid has got everything behind him that he needs. He's a Red Bull junior. Yeah. He's gone through the early ranks. He's now winning in FIA F3 and being noticed, and what a place to do it in the home of Red Bull. He's being noticed, and he's just off the edge. And I don't know whether the only thing I would say is a disadvantage is Red Bull have a full stable of horses right now, and it's hard to pick one for the Derby because Gasly's going nowhere, Tsunoda's going nowhere. And the Red Bull, Perez and Verstappen are certainly not going anywhere. Lawson's now the reserve driver after Yips was effectively let go of that position from some bad behavior by himself, but is still very much in the junior program. So there's a lot of guys all vying effectively to be Verstappen's teammate.
Bob, this is really exciting to have these Americans, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It just raises the game for all of us. And I'll second what Jonathan said, that seeing Jak Crawford go out there and prove that he can win, in my mind, that's the number one thing teams want to see. They want to see a guy who can put up a lap time, not wreck the race car, and above all, win. And so even though an accident not of his fault took him out of the second race, Jak Crawford showed that he can get out there, he can qualify well, he can manage the car, and he can win races. So, it's nothing but a great weekend for him. And I hope he knows that.
Yeah, and I think the sprint race is more with the reverse grid, and then race 2, and then the rain and so on. I think it's more exemplary of what is actually the form guide in that sprint race, and that's why it's almost more important to win that, I think.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, let's go ahead and coming up after this, we are going to have more about the Austrian Grand Prix. We'll also have that interview with Logan Sargeant, and we'll have clips from each of the top 3 drivers coming up after this.
Hello, I'm Jenny Gow from BBC F1. You are listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back to the show. If you want to join the show, give us a call, 512-643-LIVE, 512-643-5483. And we got a lot of voices in the studio, but we're going to try to squeeze in a call or two. But we're going to take this first call because we've got Drew. Drew is in Houston, and that's where Jak Crawford's from. But, Drew, how's it going, buddy?
Good. Glad to hear from y'all. I got 2 comments, a question, and then, like we say, I'll hang up and listen. So,
alrighty.
First comment, love the addition of Chris Medland on the ground to the show. Adds such a good depth. That was a great hire and a pick.
Thank you.
Number 2. So how about Mick? We went from Rolf's nephew to Michael's son, right? The way he's been driving. I hope we keep a little bit of that aggression. And then the third one, I was hoping maybe Chris or somebody else, what's the long game here for Haas? We can't keep Mick forever. K-Mag seems like he's on borrowed time, and it's not like they have a big junior program. So I'd love to know, is there any rumblings of what's going to happen for the future? So thanks, gents.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. Thanks for calling.
Alrighty.
Yeah, Chris, what do you think about that? We'll start with you since he asked for you.
Well, firstly, I'll tell Drew that the check's in the post for the first comment. I'll take that. But then for the rest of it, I think that was a bit harsh, wasn't it? On K-Mag, borrowed time. He's only 29. I stood right by his grid slot as well, and he's a veteran. If I got to do my maths quickly, so he's starting from 7th today. He's performing well. He's on a longer term deal than previously. He's been well paid by Haas. I think he's going to be there for a good few years. I think he is their stable driver that they will stick with for a while. I think the fact they've gone back to him tells you as much that they wanted that as well. With Mick, I do get that's a fair question because either Mick's not going to perform that well, which he wasn't until the last few races, or if he's going to improve, then Ferrari are going to move him up. So Haas don't really benefit longer term with him. It's either get him to show that he's got potential and he can go further up the grid, or show that he's not got it and they're going to drop him. So I think that's the seat that could become available. But as it stands, I think there's still a Ferrari young driver has to be in that second seat. So I think Haas's long game is keep Kevin. He's the benchmark. He's the continuity. And then if Ferrari are happy with Mick, Mick stays for another year, maybe 2. But if not, then maybe we're looking at someone like Robert Schwartzman. Maybe it'll be, I don't think it'll be Arthur Leclerc because I just don't think he's doing enough in F3. But another Ferrari junior down the line is more likely to go in there. So, I think at the moment the team are quite happy with that setup. And in some ways, it does work, doesn't it? Look at Mick performed very well yesterday. He's starting in 9th, just behind Kevin. They're both getting pretty much the most they can out of this car, as you guys mentioned not that long ago, that's not being updated. So I don't think they're actually too stressed about their lineup.
Yeah, I agree. I was about to say, Chris said it all, 100%. I was going to go, as I just talked about the Red Bull Junior Pack. It's the same with Ferrari. They have a lot of juniors. They just got rid of Armstrong, who, funnily enough, won this weekend. But there is a lot of Ferrari juniors out there that are capable of, getting up the ranks. So I think, yes, Haas's long-term goal will be to pick their own driver. And like you say, there's no reasons to get rid of Magnussen. And their relationship with Ferrari is further cemented by the fact that they will take their junior drivers and basically bathe them in their first year of racing and then pass them on. And also that keeps the engine deal nice and sweet. We don't know what Alfa Romeo are going to do in the future. There is rumors that they could get involved in this Porsche Audi, Sauber, blah, blah, blah. So, there is potential of some others not taking Ferrari engines in the future. I don't think one of them's Haas.
Yeah. Bob Varsha, I agree with all of that, of course, but it was also fun watching all of that Haas interaction yesterday as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think overall that's a good thing. You want that in a driver. You want that in both of your drivers. You want them to be aggressive. You want them to grab everything they can and to try to convince the team to concentrate on them. That's the name of the game. Yes, your teammates. Yes, your checks all get signed by the same guy. Yes, you wear the same uniforms and your cars are identical. but you're up there for yourself. So Fred Williams once uttered the famous line, the great drivers are all bastards because they have to be. Now, it's not that I'm calling K-Mag or Mick a bastard, but, we're seeing signs of Mick asserting himself. And that's a good thing because he's got a teammate who's proven himself quicker. And so he's got to deal with that. He's got to get moving.
Yeah, if you want to swim with us.
Yep. No, absolutely. And as far as the team goes, yes, you want a well-endowed program with a lot of junior drivers chomping at the bit to get in. But Ross Brawn, who, won a world championship with his own team and then became the director of operations for F1, once said, fix the car. You get a fast car, a proven winner, and you're not going to have any problem finding drivers. They're going to come to you. So, as far as the Haas program down the road, make a quick car. Finding drivers will be no issue.
Hey, Chris, you talk about Kevin's got lots of tread left on the tire. That's because he's a veteran like you, Chris. He's got plenty of time.
and by the way,
I'm still bitter about that.
by the way, let's not talk about the elephant in the room. They have one on reserve on ice, and he's an American, Pietro Fittipaldi.
Well, that's right.
So we have their reserve driver. So to answer the question from our man from Houston, Pietro Fittipaldi is the answer.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, let's go ahead, and I want to play some clips from the drivers yesterday because we've got Max Verstappen here who won the sprint race yesterday. Let's hear from Max.
It was not bad, I think. The first few laps were, of course, very important to pull a gap. Then, of course, I got helped a bit with them fighting, and from there on, it was all about managing, which I think went quite well. But the last few laps they were quick as well, so I do expect tomorrow to be a tight battle.
Yeah, I was looking at the timesheets. It looked like they set faster laps that were quicker than you. Did you have a little bit left in the tank? And obviously the race is a different thing altogether, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is also, about managing the track limits, which are not easy around here. And I had the gap, so there's no reason to push to the limit.
Great stuff. Have fun tomorrow.
Yeah, what do you think about Max's attitude on that, Jonathan?
Oh, I mean, the guy's won multiple times here. In fact, this race has been dominated since 2014 by Mercedes and Red Bull, and most of the Red Bull winning has been by Verstappen. This is his home race for the team. It must feel like a home race because most of the 100,000 fans there are dressed in orange. Norris might argue with you.
Yeah. Lando was definitely arguing during the celebration this morning that that's McLaren.
Doesn't he know the difference between orange and paprika?
Yeah.
I think if they were McLaren fans, they wouldn't be nearly as happy as those orange-clad folks out there in the grandstand seem to be. And on that point about Max winning, I noticed a stat. Max won both Grand Prix held at this track last year, both of them from pole. Both of them led every lap, did the same in the sprint race here. So there's like 160, 170 laps consecutively around this track when Max Verstappen hasn't been anywhere but first.
Yeah, in the last six
awesome.
iterations, he's won 4 and podium 5.
Well, I think he's got the combination going. I mean, he's at a track he obviously loves, but I think he's got really strong confidence in his car right now on all these varieties of tracks. This is a really short track, and 2 3/4 mile.
The key to this weekend, and I'm sure Chris will back me up here. The key to this weekend is precision because we've seen it already with Perez losing that time. Track limits are enforced here. We need Hawkeye from Wimbledon, and a few. We need a few ball girls and boy girls, boys and boy girls. I can't even say it this time of the morning. On either side of turn 9 because that's where that line is.
Is this going to make a game of Frogger or something?
No. It's Wimbledon finals day. I've got to go parallel, and I've got to bring Britain in at some
tennis?
point. Yes, tennis.
Okay, tennis. Okay.
Ball and rackets.
Okay.
On a lawn.
All right. Hey, we're gonna go. I
Baseball.
want to hear from the number 2 man from yesterday's sprint race. Let's hear from Charles Leclerc.
It was, and yes, I am excited. We lost a little bit of time with the fight with Carlos in the first part of the sprint. Trying to save in the first part and then push at the end. But then once I push, I could feel that the tire and the car was there. So it's looking positive for tomorrow.
And you had a good battle with Carlos, nice and clean, and it went through quite a few corners.
Yeah, it was quite on the limit, but it was fun, hard racing.
Great stuff. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Peace out there for you.
All right, let's go straight into Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, it was good fun. I enjoyed it. Good positive signs, that I can stay close with Charles, with Max on pace this weekend, and yeah, I think it's very tight between us three. So tomorrow there's going to be a bit more going on, with the strategies, with the stops, hopefully more pace deltas, coming from the tires, and we can have a good fight.
Did you learn a lot from today's race, the way you were fighting as well, that can help you out tomorrow? Because the win's very much on the cards, isn't it?
Today definitely was useful to see how the car feels in dirty air, following Charles, battling with Max. So we definitely learned quite a bit that we will try and apply for tomorrow.
Well, they need to do something, because if we're not careful, Max is going to run away with this.
There is a fear, and there was a couple of stories in the press about, how hard do they fight? And we saw it in the sprint race, do they step on each other's toes? When they're that close together and they've been fighting as hard as they have, the one guy's on a high and he's just got his first win. The other needs a win like a hole in the head. So both of them are going to be motivated today, and they just better not trip on each other.
Bob, you're in
exactly.
You're the boss of Ferrari. What are you telling these boys?
Boy, good question. Race hard, stay out of each other's way.
Yeah.
Nothing dicey, but race hard. I mean, all you got to do is show them what happened yesterday. You heard two of the three drivers, Max and Charles Leclerc, say, we lost time fighting.
Yeah.
Max appreciated the two Ferraris were skirmishing behind him. Charles say, we lost time skirmishing. I think Carlos said some reference to it too. So, it's clear what has to be done. You have to give these guys a race plan. I don't know what that might be. Maybe whoever gets to the first corner, stay behind until there's an obvious, safe place to pass. Let us know if you think you're quicker, and we'll judge looking at the data and, manage the race. You got two aggressive guys. You don't want them trying to manage it over the radio. Tell them, what they need to do, because you're fighting a common enemy and you've got to try to deal with them. Maybe try an undercut or an overcut during the pit stops, of which there will probably be only one per car this race, unless there's some kind of wicked tire degradation after the rainfall. But, get organized, guys. Race hard, but race clean, and listen when we tell you something.
Yeah, that was my big criticism of Silverstone. I mean, what on earth? Leclerc lobbying to get past Sainz because he was better, he said, and then the team listening to it, and Sainz having to come back and under safety saying, quit inventing stuff. I mean, basically the three of them, the engineers and the two drivers, were arguing when they should have talked about this pre-race, going, if this happens, and it's not, I know there's a lot happens in a race, but there are scenarios where you say, look, if push comes to shove, this guy's leading the championship, you let him go. Or if push comes to shove, if so-and-so's faster, we will let him go. I mean, it really isn't that. It's not brain surgery. It's just get on with it, guys. It's a race, and we're in charge of your race. Stop belly aching.
Yeah. All right.
One of the funny things about this track, though, when you talk about who's faster behind, is that every time, it's what happened with Mick and Kevin yesterday.
Yeah.
The car behind always feels they're faster because of DRS.
Yeah.
There's 3 DRS zones that gives you nearly a second a lap an advantage. So you get that pull up to the back of your teammate, but then if you swap positions, the car that drops behind gets the same advantage. And suddenly you swap them and there's no difference. So that's one of the challenges that they have around this track.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Very good point.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. Well, coming up.
And I was curious. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Bob, let me get this in. Coming up after this, we'll be inside of 30 minutes for the Austrian Grand Prix, and we're also going to hear from the other American driver. We're going to hear from Logan Sargeant. You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM. Back after this.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
The Speed City F1 pre-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, we were talking about Americans, and Bob Varsha so rightly pointed out to me that I need to make sure people know that we're talking about Americans in the Junior Series, Formula 2, Formula 3, but the capital THE Junior Series, because this is Formula 2, FIA Formula 2, and Formula 3.
Schumacher, Gasly, you name it. They
all the guys that you see, most of them on the F1 grid came from these Junior Series.
Sonoda.
Yeah, and Jak Crawford, who we had on earlier, is in the FIA Formula 3. Not like the Formula 3 regionals that are around the world that would, that are very legitimate.
This is the international one.
This is the international. It's the real
Right.
deal.
Yeah.
But Chris, you got an update for us for the American drivers.
I have indeed. So I did have a chat with Logan Sargeant earlier today after he finished 4th on the road in the feature race after it was a wild race that started on the drying tracks. He had to pick between wets and slicks to start the race on. He fell a long way back, like a lot of drivers did, climbed through brilliantly, finished 4th. A driver ahead of him got a time penalty, so that put him to 3rd. Now, the race winner, Richard Varsha, he ran out of fuel on the lap back to the pits, so he's been disqualified. So that's Logan up to 2nd behind Jehan Deruvala, and Deruvala is also under investigation for drying his grid slot. So it could well be that Logan ends up winning this race, having been 4th on the road when he crossed the line.
Back-to-back wins.
That would be incredible. Well,
that's fabulous.
Well, we had Dixon Smith on YouTube comment a while ago. He said Sargent's only 49 points behind the leader. And now, who knows, after...
He's 3rd in the championship, going into the second half of the season. That's awesome.
Oh, man, that's,
it's fantastic.
Just before we talk about Logan, actually, a bit of breaking news from the grid. I am stood behind Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes, and something is not right with it. There's a lot of Mercedes mechanics leaning over they've got the engine cover off. They're swarming around the back of it. Andrew Shublin's just come over to oversee what is going on. The FIA are here too, having a good close look. They seem to be taking out some sort of wire right now. But yeah, there's a lot of work going on Hamilton's car, and it's got everyone interested because the Haas team next to it are having a look. Alpine ahead of him are turning and watching. So yeah, some sort of issue here. I'm not quite sure what it is, but
keep on that, buddy.
Right now.
Yeah, let us know what happens with that.
Interesting.
Bob, it sounds like it's an electrical problem.
Right.
You mean the archetypal answer to all things Formula One?
Right. Everything's an electrical problem.
It's not the engine.
You don't want to piss off your engine maker. That's right. It's not that hole in the side of the block. Piston and Conrod.
That's electric.
It's an electrical issue.
ECU.
Might be hydraulic too, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we were talking about Logan Sargeant. We have an interview from Logan. We got that ready, producer? He is giving me the one finger, not that finger, the one finger, like just a moment. And okay, we're ready for here's Logan.
Logan, we spoke to you last weekend when you won a race. We're here, and who knows, you might end up winning a race again. 3rd place on the road today. Investigations going on for the 2 drivers ahead of you. How pleased are you with today's race?
I'm extremely pleased. Obviously, a mistake to go on the wets, something to learn from for in the future. I should have been more assertive with saying I wanted to start on the slicks. Obviously, it's a big risk, but once we put those primes on, man, I was coming through. And big shout out to the Carlin boys. They put a great car on the floor today, and they had the best pit stop I've had of the year. And man, they did a great job.
I mean, you were flying when you put those slicks on as well. For anyone who hasn't seen the race today, it was a wet, dry track, and the top 4 all started on wets, and so did a few others that disappeared backwards after about lap 4, lap 5. Logan, you were one of them, and you were, I think, about 13th, 14th when you made your pit stop. But the ground you made up in the first few laps on slicks, I mean, how did you measure that? How did you balance it? Because you didn't go too hard. You still had tyres at the end of the race as well.
Yeah, I wasn't messing about. You had an angry driver behind the wheel. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. I think today that worked for me. I didn't worry too much about Deg, to be honest. I just wanted to, charge my way back through. And, I got to be proud of what I did today.
Yeah, it was a very, very impressive recovery, and you'll, I guess, wait and see what happens with investigations. When will you find out? Have you got to leave here and you're going to get a phone call? What happens?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm happy with the 3rd. Anything else is obviously a massive bonus. But, looking at the bigger picture, today was a massive positive, and we just need to keep it going.
Yeah, you're 3rd, and the 2 guys ahead of you in the championship both failed to score, Felipe Drugovich and Teo Pourchaire. Are you looking at those standings now and being like, I'm coming?
Yeah, I mean, we have 6 rounds to go. It's a long way. I just got to keep doing my thing. I think we have a great car every weekend, and we just need to keep extracting the full potential. And if we do that, we're going to be right at the sharp end.
You must be wanting to get in the car again tomorrow with the way you're driving.
Honestly, a week off sounds good. I need a little recharge. Yeah, I mean, I'd be ready if you said tomorrow as well.
Well, go and enjoy the week off, and thanks. Well done today.
Thank you very much.
They are giving that boy his Wheaties every morning, aren't they?
49 points off the lead.
Well, and that's fantastic. But listen to him.
I know.
Every spot in that interview, he's focused, he's serious, and aggressive. It sounds to me like he is
on the way.
On the way, and clearly the momentum's in the right place. Bob, you like this guy?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the same thing we were talking about with Carlos Sainz at Silverstone and Mick Schumacher here in Austria. You know, the driver needs to be assertive. He needs to be a part of the team, not just taking orders from the team. And yeah, I like what I hear out of Logan Sargeant.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to watching him. But Chris Medland is over in Austria. Any updates, Chris? I know you were looking at the Mercedes car a while ago. Has it caught fire? Is anything happening?
No, they're still working on it. They're working hard. There's a lot of movement going on. The engine cover's going back on. Brake covers are going back on. The shrouding on the rear brakes. Andrew Shovlin has just walked away from the car and gone back towards the garage. So we'll wait and see what happens there. And I was going to try and interrupt a conversation between. So there's Zach Brown and Andreas Seidl, and Zach doesn't want to talk. Too many Americans on this show anyway. So it'll be Andreas. Andreas, firstly, I wonder if are you watching what's happening with Lewis Hamilton's car on the grid here with the issues he's having?
Oh, no, actually, I didn't recognize yet. Busy enough to focus on our two cars.
Well, speaking of your two cars, starting outside the top 10, but you made a bit of progress in the sprint yesterday. What can you do today?
I think we started 10 and 11. So, yeah, I think we're seeing a pace yesterday. I think we definitely have a car that can move forward even more positions, and that's the goal for today. We need to see how it goes with tire degradation over the course of the race compared to the Haas cars, for example. And together with Daniel and Lando, I guess we have everything we need to move forward, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah, that'll teach me for forgetting Valtteri Bottas with his penalty after the sprint yesterday. Went for 10th. He's starting in the pit lane. Who are your main rivals behind, though? You've got some cars that do look like they could be quite quick. I'm mainly looking at Guan Yu Zhou, actually. I mean, that Alfa Romeo is a tricky customer.
Yeah. Of course. Everyone behind us will try exactly the same as we are doing. So just have to do our race, have a clean race, clean first lap, as we have seen yesterday. Quickly something happening here, turn 1, turn 3, and then just do our race, and hopefully that's enough to score good points with our cars.
And just finally, what does your weather forecast say? Going to stay dry?
From what I heard, it should stay dry, so let's see.
We'll see. Thank you, Andreas. There we go. So Zach dodged an interview. He's just... He sees me coming these days. He was like, no, get out of the way. But yeah, Andreas, he's always optimistic, but it hasn't been a great weekend for McLaren so far. But I think the fact it's a sprint weekend has put them on the back foot from the very first session, and they haven't been able to catch up. So I don't think it's a fair reflection of their competitiveness. It's just been a messy weekend.
But this is Lando's track, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 podiums here he's had in the past. Very quick normally. He had a brake-by-wire issue in qualifying. That's why he ended up qualifying so low down. And I think they were careful with the car yesterday as well. Because of that. So, as they said, yeah, I did forget Valtteri Bottas. He's done a pit lane start. They've changed his rear wing. So he was starting at the back anyway for power unit components. They've changed his rear wing, so he's got a quicker car in a straight line to do some overtaking. So I reckon he's going to be on the hard compound tyre, run long, try and get past as many people as you can. But with him going, that puts Norris at the 10th. So already they're starting, with a chance of points.
Yep. Good point.
Chris, I know you said there's no smoke coming out of the Mercedes, but I see tons of smoke on the television, all that orange smoke that we're trying to decide either Lando thinks it's for him, but I think it's for Max.
Yeah, it does tend to be a little bit of a Max stronghold this. Not only is he very, very good round here, the fan base are just crazy for him. He gets huge support. It's like a festival atmosphere. Heck of a party they have in the grandstand. So they're expectant, I think, now with the form he's been in. And I think it hinges on just getting a clean start. I think if either of the Ferraris get ahead of him, they will stay there. They are very closely matched. The data says there's half a tenth between the two cars. But whoever gets into I say turn 1, out of turn 4 in the lead on the first lap has the best chance here.
All right. Hey, I'm going to go to Bob Varsha because, Bob, we were talking yesterday in a production call about the Red Bull denying the direction of the car development, right?
Yeah, it was sparked by some comments that Sergio Perez made in an interview about how the car has moved away from his driving style. He's less comfortable with it now than he was earlier on in the season. So, of course, that led to all sorts of conspiracy theories about how they were developing the car more to suit his teammate, Max Verstappen, than to suit Sergio. And their chief mechanic, whose name escapes me right now, answered that question. He said, no, that'd be ridiculous for us to do such a thing because we need Sergio to be at his best in addition to Max, because what we're after is both championships and we're 1-2 in it right now. So, yeah, he kind of threw water on that fire, but, the rumor mill in Formula One grinds on and on and on. It hit Ferrari. An ex-Ferrari PR guy wrote in the Italian media that some of Charles Leclerc's crew did not go to the podium for Sainz's victory in Silverstone because of the bad feeling between the two sides of the garage. And Mr. Bonotto said he checked with everybody in the garage, and that's not the case. So I'll take his word for it. But, this kind of thing happens. All the head games, all the psychology, the media playing their role in all of this. So, Red Bull in this case is no different than anybody else.
I have a feeling Bonotto was more like, you didn't have a problem with the other side of the garage, did you?
Hey, I know we're going to a break, but can you get Chris to find out what that Grand Piano tires are, because it's in pole position right now?
The what?
The Grand Piano here in Austria is on pole, and I just want to know what the setup is. It doesn't look aerodynamic, but...
All right, well, coming up after this, my favorite part of the pre-show, and that's Bob Varsha walking us through the grid. You're listening to Speed City F1, back after this.
Hello to everyone, this is Guenther Steiner, this is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, we're going to go straight out to Chris Medland in Austria. What do you got, Chris?
Well, there's still a lot of work going on Lewis Hamilton's car here. Now on the front end, so the nose is off. The brake covers on the front are off. Lewis has just come back over, and he's looking at the car. He should be ready to get in it. Cars are firing up on the grids. Drivers are putting on their helmets. And Mercedes are a long way away from being done with this car right now. So a lot of work going on. It's clearly a pretty serious issue, seeing as they had the engine cover off, then they worked on the rear. That's finished. Now they work on the front. They're not quite out of time, but it's running close.
Wow. Yeah. Well, he might not even get to race if at this point. Geez,
he's got time to bump shake Gordon Ramsay though, so you can't be too stressed.
Hey, Chris, I was
just there.
Wow.
Gordon Ramsay just came over to see him, but so Lewis is putting this race suit on now, getting his helmet ready. The team just put the front wing back on, and they are trying to finish off the brakes. So they're trying to make sure the car is ready to roll when the formation lap starts. Whether the issue is resolved, whatever it is, we'll have to wait and see. But I actually was looking around to see if one of their kind of chief engineers were around, or Toto Wolff I haven't seen on the grid either. I think they are in the garage probably monitoring things and trying to get this all sorted. So, this is definitely dramatic and not the way it should be pre-race. But Mercedes now just trying to put the car back together. It's nearly back together. Just the front left to go. So maybe it will be ready to go.
Chris, you're giving us updates ahead of the television. Nicely done.
I'm trying to see if I can see you.
Yeah, I know. All right. Well, let's hear from CrowdStrike real quick. CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60. Our digital world is more than just interconnected; it's interdependent, and because of that, security is a top concern for every organization. The Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team knows they're a potential target for a host of digital attacks, which is why they leverage the CrowdStrike Falcon platform to deploy end-to-end security solutions. CrowdStrike revolutionized cybersecurity by harnessing the speed and power of the cloud to identify and stop the most sophisticated cyber attacks. Our cloud-native Falcon platform protects and defends organizations against increasingly complex threats, so you can have the peace of mind to focus on your business momentum, not what's trying to stop it. That's protection that powers you. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. I'm sure that it's not a cyber attack that's caused Lewis Hamilton's problem right now.
I don't know. It won't be. Not with CrowdStrike on all over him.
Exactly. They're a part of the team. Toto Wolff just walked over here. Sorry, I'm stood by him. Going to see if I can grab a word. But I've just seen him give the thumbs up to one of the engineers who's replied with a thumbs up and said it should be fine now.
Okay,
so
good.
I need to know if Toto will give us an answer. I think he might. Well, he'll give Sky one first. So I'll jump in straight after that and find out what the issue was. But Lewis is now in the car. So that's a good sign from Mercedes. And I'll just say, Toto, what was the issue with Lewis's car?
Sorry, what did you say?
What was the issue there?
Soft pedal, so we bleeded.
And everything okay now?
Should be, hopefully.
Perfect, thank you. There we go. So it was a brakes issue, soft pedals, they bled the brakes. It sounds so normal, doesn't it, to have to do that? But I'm also going to quickly grab Guenther Steiner. In fact, I can tell Guenther now that Toto's just said that was a brake pedal that was soft on Lewis's car and they bled the brakes. Lewis, starting in between your two drivers today, how excited are you for this race?
I don't know what is going to happen. I mean, I don't know what happened. They've let the brakes, but for us, I mean, having an in between, hopefully we don't get into him like normally. So, but I think Kevin is aware of it. So let's see what we can do on the first lap.
And your two drivers raced very well for most of yesterday, but there was a bit of a disagreement about who should be ahead. Mick held off Lewis for ages very impressively. In the end, has ended up behind him. Have you had to speak to them again about today and how it goes?
Yeah, I mean, today we will apply the same strategy, and that is points for the team. Whoever makes them, I don't really care. We look after the team, or I look after the team. We need constructor points, and whoever makes them is good, but we need to take the safest option on that way to try to get these points.
And just finally, do you know why your car's so quick, even though you haven't brought any updates to it?
No, but I always said the car is quick. We just had a few 5 races where, for one reason or another, we couldn't get the potential to the end of the race or qualifying. So I always stayed calm and we stayed our way. And so I'm not really surprised about it.
Well, some people are, but it's going very well for you, Haas. Good luck to today. I have got to get off the grid. I am getting shouted at to get out of everyone's way.
Fantastic job. Thank you, Chris.
Great stuff, Chris.
Oh, man. How about that, guys? Real-time updates from
the track. I love
from
it.
the track. From Mercedes. They put the nose of the car on, and then we had Toto Wolff telling us what the problem was.
Wherever you're driving around America, stay tuned.
Oh, man. Well, all right. Well, speaking of stay tuned. Go ahead, Bob.
That is really curious, the brakes. Recall that both Mercedes crashed out of qualifying.
Yeah.
And I assume that maybe brakes played some role in that. Having brake pressure and all that kind of stuff would seem to be, item 2, 3, or 4 on the checklist. And yet here they are bleeding the brakes on the grid. Seems strange, but it is what it is.
Well, speaking of the grid, why don't you run that down for us, Bob?
All right, let's go. And forgive me if I make mistakes because I can't read my own writing and this grid has changed a bit. But here we go. Starting on pole, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, the crowd darling, who has now won the first 2 sprint races of the year and collected the maximum of 16 points. And those could be very useful come the end of the year. But as we spoke earlier, he has taken pole and led every lap of the last 2 Grand Prix and a sprint race here at the Red Bull Ring. So he is just dominant. Starting next to him, Charles Leclerc in the first of the Ferraris, who also started second to Verstappen at the Imola sprint race. Ominously, Leclerc has yet to win from any position other than pole in his career, and he's not on pole today. On row 2, Carlos Sainz in the second Ferrari, brimming with confidence after winning from pole last week at Silverstone. Ferrari continues to improve. They qualified 10th and 12th for this race last year. But again, ominously, Ferrari hasn't won here at the Red Bull Ring in any configuration since 2003 when Michael Schumacher did it. Next to him, George Russell, despite his crash in qualifying, matches his best starting position of the year, which came at the Spanish Grand Prix of Barcelona. He also led that race, the only time he's led a race all year for all of 4 laps. On to row 3, Sergio Perez, the biggest mover in the sprint race, and he had to. He gained 8 places from his 13th place grid slot after losing all of his hot laps for violating track limits. He's going to have to be very careful in the race today. Next to him, Esteban Ocon, a bright light for Alpine on an otherwise dreary day. The first points in a sprint qualifier for the team and a big boost for the young Frenchman, starting in the top 6 for only the second time this year. On to row 4, Kevin Magnussen. The Haas team, as we've been talking about, continues to improve both in qualifying and the race. K-Mag scores in his second straight sprint qualifier and moved up a spot in the championship with the points. Next to him, Lewis Hamilton, who hopefully will be healthy for this race, who just squeezed into the sprint points, picked up the last one for 8th place after a massive struggle with Mick Schumacher in the Haas. And who would have thought we'd be saying that kind of thing at this point? Think about a 7-time world champion battling with the son of the only other 7-time world champion. I think that's a great story. On to row 5, the aforementioned Mick Schumacher, very annoyed to be passed by Hamilton. He thought the team could have helped him avoid that. He will start the Grand Prix in the top 10 for the 4th time this season, but he was not a happy camper. Hopefully he can channel that rage, as we heard Logan Sargeant talking about. Sometimes an angry driver is a good thing. Next to him, Lando Norris on a miserable weekend thus far for McLaren, who we heard made some changes after a miserable Friday. but he also changed without penalty to another engine from his pool, so there's no penalty involved. And he gained 4 places in the sprint, so hopefully the sun is starting to shine for Lando Norris. On row 6, Daniel Ricciardo, his teammate, though neither McLaren has performed as expected here in Austria. Danny Rick is desperate for a good performance. Next to him, Lance Stroll in the first of the Aston Martins. Both starters on the row benefited from a time penalty to the Williams of Alex Albon. On row 7, Guan Yu Zhou, gearbox trouble. Well, actually, it was another electrical issue. His car stalled as he was coming around to the grid, but he managed to get it started after they knocked 1 lap off the race and did an extra formation lap. But the Chinese rookie recovered to finish 7th after starting from the pit lane. Next to him, Pierre Gasly in the first of the AlphaTauris. First lap contact for the 2nd consecutive race, this time with Lewis Hamilton. Went into a half spin, lost 5 places. It's not been a great weekend for AlphaTauri. Next to him, on to row 8, Alex Albon, who got that 5-second penalty for forcing Lando Norris off the track early in the sprint race, and he lost 3 positions from his qualified position to the end of the sprint. Next to him, Yuki Tsunoda in the 2nd AlphaTauri, who also lost 3 positions on what's looking like another forgettable weekend for AlphaTauri. On row 9, Nick Latifi, who returns to the back of the pack in the 2nd Williams after some reasonable races recently, in all fairness. Next to him, Sebastian Vettel, who's had a heck of a weekend, including a suspended €25,000 penalty for storming out of the drivers' meeting for some reason. He was the 2nd retiree from the sprint race after Fernando Alonso. More on him in a moment. But to his credit, Vettel recovered nicely from an off-track excursion into the gravel using reverse, which usually we see the drivers struggling to get the car into and out of reverse. Sebastian Vettel looked like the valet at the Bel Air Hotel. Not a problem. And on the 10th and final row, Fernando Alonso, whose car failed to start for the formation lap, electrical issues. He described it as a total blackout, totally lost the information from his steering wheel. So not a great start for him. And Valtteri Bottas will start dead last. He actually finished 10th in the sprint race, but he was relegated to the rear due to a package of power components. So expect to see Alonso and Bottas coming forward early and often.
Well, Bob, we've just got less than a minute left. Let's get your predictions for the race, and then we'll get ours.
Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez.
I like it. Jonathan?
Funnily enough, Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, George Russell.
Okay. Les Kaiser?
Max, Sainz, and Leclerc.
And I see Chris is still connected. Are you on, Chris?
I am, and I'm going to go Leclerc, Max, Perez to mix it up.
Well, I'll just go Max, Sainz. How about this one, guys? Ocon. I'll throw that in.
Can I throw one other prediction in?
Yes.
Track limits, rain.
That's more than one.
And DRS.
We got to go, guys. Stay tuned for the race and stay tuned for the post-race afterwards.